What's up, everybody? I just wanted to get on here real quick and talk about my new video series that I will be making, and it's going to focus on groundwork. I feel like a lot of times that groundwork is something that is missing, especially in the barrel horse world, because I'm a barrel racer, so I see that a lot. I see people with horses that want to walk off when they go to get on, and trailer issues and pushiness, because barrel horses tend to be a little high strung, and so when all of that emotion and adrenaline gets going, horses tend to stop thinking. So I decided to make a video series to hopefully help you guys out some. Is geared more towards horses that are already broke and riding and competing. I will be doing a series later on more geared towards colt starting. However, you can still do these exercises, but in my colt starting series I will be focusing on more in-depth stuff on like preparing them for the first ride and all of that stuff. So this is geared more towards horses that are already broke, but you still can do it with your unbroke horses. Anyways, let's get started. Before we get started, I want to talk to you a little bit about the tools that you're going to need for this to be a successful adventure for you. So the first thing, and probably the most important thing, is a rope halter. The reason for this is these knots on this halter work off of pressure points. They're specifically designed to be on those pressure points, not to hurt the horse, but to discourage the horse pulling on you. If you have a horse that is just running sideways, or maybe if you go to lunge they're turning away from you and just pulling on a web halter, it's because that halter is not doing anything to make that horse feel uncomfortable about pulling on you. I'm not saying web halters are bad. I do have some when I want my horse to look pretty, but they're not ideal for training. So the way I explain it to people, 80% of the people that bring me problem horses that are doing those sorts of things, pulling, running off, they're in web halters. So there's a method in the madness. The way I explain it to them, because I've had them ask me, well, why do you use rope halters? They're kind of cruel. I'm like, they're not cruel. They are a training tool. They can be misused just the way that spurs can, whips can, any tie downs, anything can be misused, including these halters. Some people will put halters like this on a horse and just jerk, 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 jerk all the time. That's all they do, is jerk on the horse. This is a training tool, and if used correctly, it can work wonders on your horse. So the way I explain it to them is I take my flat hand and I will put it on their arm, and I'll just, on the person, I'm just using him for an example, I'll push on their arm and I'll ask them, how uncomfortable is that? Could you kind of stand there and lean against me and be okay? They're like, yeah, probably. And then I do my hand like this, and I do the same thing. I push against their arm, and then I ask them, how comfortable is that? And they're like, it's not very comfortable. I was like, you wouldn't stand there very long if I'm sitting here pushing this into your arm. And I was like, now if I add a slight bumping pressure to it, it's even more uncomfortable. So it makes you not want to stand there, just the way it makes a horse not want to pull against you. So that's why we use rope halters to help us out, because we are small compared to 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 pound animals. So we want to have as much advantage as we can to try to control the situation from being dangerous. So that's why we use rope halters. Next, you want a longer lead rope than normal. Do not go out in the middle of a pasture and try to start doing this groundwork with your normal 8 foot, however long the 8 foot leads. You want to have at least a good 12 to 16 foot rope, so that way when your horse freaks out, they've got a little bit of room to calm down, because let me tell you, rope burn is no joke. So if you go out there and you've only got 8 foot of lead rope and the horse gets to the end of that lead rope, you're gonna let go instead of burn your hand. So you want to have that extra, you know, 4 to 6 feet to help you out. Now my rope here is just like a hardware store rope that I went and had cut, and I have it just tied to my halter. There's no clip to break. So this rope is on here, and there's no, I mean, it's just cut at the end with electrical tape wrapped around it, so you don't have to go spend a fortune on a lunging rope unless you just want to and you have the extra money. You can just go to Lowe's or Tractor Supply or whatever hardware store you have and get you a length of rope cut, and just put electrical tape on each end. Now, the next thing, you want to have some kind of leg protection, because when you first start out with these horses, it does get a little messy. They can trip over themselves, especially if they're a little bit reactive. They will freak out and kind of knock themselves around a little bit. So you want to make sure that you've got some sort of leg protection. If you can't afford the high dollar boots, either find a cheaper brand or get you some polo wraps and learn how to do polo wraps. And then the last thing you need is some sort of training stick. Now, I will tell you, you do want a hard, preferably fiberglass training stick. This is a, I just got it from a feed store. I used to have a Clinton Anderson one, and actually the string that I have is still from that Clinton Anderson one. However, I somehow lost the stick at a barrel race one day, and so I just have this one now, and you can see that it is just held together. It's time for a new one, but now you can just, it doesn't have to be a fancy one. They have them, I think, for like 15 bucks at a local feed store. The flimsy ones that they sell are not going to do a whole lot because you can't tap them. I like to just have a stick and a string, and you can use it without the string. You don't have to have the string on there. If you're fumbling with the string, take it off. Just use the stick until you get better, because the string comes into play later on anyways. But I've had this for about 4 years now. It's probably time to get a new one, but as long as it's usable, I'm going to continue to use it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all you need. Rope halter, leg protection, a 12 to 16 foot rope, and then a training stick.